everyone. Hello, Mad Hatter here. Today we'll be doing a full-on EX weapon tier list. Last time we did a hero priority tier list for new players. This time we'll be instead doing a EX weapon priority tier list. Now, just to set some ground rules, at the end of the day, when you're going to get to endgame, you will eventually want all EXs for all the heroes you use. This is just a priority list as for a new player. Getting every single EX you need is going to be really difficult. So it's really important to know which ones you should be aiming for. So let's start off with, I think, the most obvious one on this tier list, and that's Claude. Claude is an absolute monster. Even if you can't pick up his EX, pick him up no matter what. But with his EX, he's so good. You want to rush this man's EX as soon as you can. It's so good. It makes him so much better. If you haven't seen my review of him, you can check out my previous priority hero tier list. Next, Yunha. I'm just going to be covering the big guns here because most people end up just skipping the video anyway, which absolutely hurts my YouTube analytics, but it's fine. Yunha, she doesn't need her EX, but it greatly helps her, as with, any other hero. However, if you're running her outside of basic, it's fine. She doesn't really need it. But if you are going to run her lead, it's really important to have it as her weapon skill is really damn good. So, in terms of priority, she is below Claude, in my opinion, as Claude's EX just propels him to absurd levels of DPS, while hers just makes her better. Next up on the list, Sia. Now, Sia, I think, absolutely needs her EX. With her EX, her attack buff and overall party damage boost, it's just becomes so much stronger, I think. It's just her without her EX is a completely different character. So, mileaging her EX is honestly not a bad idea if you have her, but of course, prioritize your DPS EXs over your healer EXs, as you'll be using your DPSs much more in the long run. We'll cover a couple of the rare heroes, however, do know that they're a lot easier to get and you'll mostly stack them up over time, so never mileage rare hero EX weapons. They're just not worth mileaging. You can get them pretty easily over time and you don't have to worry about it. Craig is once again going to be in like B tier, because as he's a tank, he doesn't need his EX at all whatsoever. It's a legendary EX, it's also quite easy to obtain. However, he doesn't need it. Unless you're going to be using him in like arena, he's not going to need it. You can run him with most tanks, you can run him anywhere in PvE without needing his EX. He works perfectly fine. It doesn't make much of a difference. So don't worry about it. It's not really a high priority. We will cover, let's see. Let's go with Tinia next. Tinia is pretty much a raid unit, only a pure raid specialist. 1CC First Corps Commander has mostly replaced her. However, she's still fine, but you don't need her EX at all. It's just a slight DPS increase, not for the party, but just for her alone. So unless you're a hyper endgame player or you've just managed to luckily pull it, you don't want to pull for her EX or mileage it ever. Never mileage a Tinia EX. Aleph, same thing. The unit is mighty useless. Doesn't really do much, especially for a new player, and his EX. He's a horrible unit. Don't go for his EX in the first place. Kamael. Kamael is also going to be have to up here. I think he gets more value out of his EX than Yunha gets out of her. Don't get me wrong, Yunha is not a worse unit than them. However, Kamael and Claude get much greater value out of their EXs. You absolutely want their EXs again. Yunha's you don't have to rush it instantly, but you would really like to have it. Next, Future Knight. Future Knight just needs her EXs straight up. You need machine gun. You need chainsaw if you're gonna run her in PvP. But as a new player, don't worry about it. You need machine gun for Future Knight. So actually, A tier, A tier, yeah, because she herself isn't bad, but yeah, no, she'll be near the bottom of A plus tier because she is a solid DPS, and you kind of want DPS weapons. First Corps Commander, her EX only increases her DPS slightly, and it, I believe, increases her mark defense shred by about 10%. So it's a pretty decent party increase, and it also makes her a lot more viable in like arena. Her EX is good to have, so I think anything below A plus tier, you really shouldn't mileage, right? Anything below A plus tier, just wait for the banner, and you can probably get it by that point. However, some of them I will specifically say, depending on what stage of the game you're at, you can mileage them. Like if you're a new game or early game player, it's fine to mileage Future Knight's Atomic Destroyer, her gun EX, if she's your only solid DPS. Same thing for First Corps Commander. If you're a mid game player looking to get into raids and stuff, you're probably gonna need your EX. So those are the times where mileaging them is certainly not a bad option. Purcell, same thing. She's gonna be down here. She's even more useless than Tinia in my opinion because Purcell is already a bad unit. Getting her EX is completely pointless. Ogma. Ogma's actually going to be, near the bottom of a. It depends which Ogma we're talking about, right? If it's Sword Ogma, then Sword Ogma's going to be like down here, even like right here. If it's Sword Ogma we're talking about, but if it's Gun Ogma, then it's going to be like B plus. So I'm going to clarify here, and for the people that are going to skip ahead and like maybe mileage his weapon, I'm so sorry for you, man. However, if we're talking about Gun Agma, it's fine to mileage him, but generally it's not something you should worry about until, mid game, because that's primarily for raids, boss rush. However, if you're early game, never mileage Agma Sword. It's the same situation with Craig. Don't mileage them, okay? In fact, I'm actually going to move Craig even further down, because you don't need his EX ever unless you're doing Arena. Same thing, if you're going for Agma Sword, never mileage that unless you're doing Arena. So if this is Sword Agma, he's in C+. plus. Gun Agma, like bottom of A, maybe top of B plus. So yeah, I'm just gonna put him in B plus as a concession for both things. Next up, let's go with next up, Future Princess. Now, Future Princess is really good, solid unit, but she doesn't need her EX. She doesn't need her EX outside of, Coliseum, Arena, stuff like that. Or if you're using her as your primary lead, she doesn't really need it. However, it's not a bad EX to mileage or go for, but it's not really good either. This is one of the things in A tier that I wouldn't really mileage because you don't need it as much so as you would require an EX for some other characters. Now, Gabriel. Gabriel, I think, is also going to be an A tier. Her EX gives her a lot more utility, makes her healing stronger, especially if you run her as lead. So it's a good EX to go for, especially considering Gabriel is a good unit. Andros is going to be a weird one, as I think she's going to be bottom of A plus tier actually. Her DPS is just so good. She scales as a really solid character into the end game. However, she can actually substitute her Scythe for Kama LZX if you're using her for Earth Rings and stuff. But as a new player, you don't need to really worry about all that. However, if she is your main DPS early on, you can mileage your EX and not worry about it. It's fine. It's not a big deal. Next up, we're gonna go with Plitvis. Plitvis is absolutely useless. Trash unit. Don't need her EX. You'll probably get a bunch of them anyway, even though you don't want them. So yeah, it's not worth going for. Next up, Ascended Karina. Oh, that's not Ascended Karina. Ascended Karina. Ascended Karina EX is actually pretty high prio because it makes her significantly stronger. However, once again, don't mileage it. It's not worth mileaging rare hero EXs because they're just so easy to obtain over time. You stack up so many that if you just mileage them, you're gonna really cut yourself short in mileage tickets and progress in the future. So if you get it, it's nice. Her EX is really good. It makes her a lot better. However, even without it, she's okay. But don't mileage it, please. Don't mileage your Hero EXs. It's not a smart investment. You don't get much out of it, as you'll eventually make it up with time. Next up, Beth. Beth is easily S tier, not because she's a crazy, crazy good unit. She's a really good unit. Don't get me wrong, but ranged heroes I think just scale and progression wise better because there's just so many range units, so many good range support, so many good range DPSs that they just have too much support and team compositions that you can make with them. Melee is a lot more restricted, right? Like if you're running, for example, Beth, you can't use Kama L, you can't use Claude, you can't use Yunha, you can't use Andros. You can't comfortably use Karina. You can't use Future Knight. You can't use First Corps Commander. You can't comfortably use First Corps Commander, I should say, right? But you can use, Future Princess, Ogma, Craig, and stuff like that. But yeah, her EX does make her an absolute monster. Though you need her EX. Beth without her EX is like an absolute bot, right? If you get her EX, she's an absolute beast. She can solo most early game content. She can cruise through all of story, no problem. You probably don't even need a team for most of the story with Beth. Same thing for Claude and Kamael, but Beth is just brain dead. Press one button, everything dies. The others are too, but Beth is different. You'll understand what I mean. She just gets so tanky around so many targets. Next up, we're actually gonna do Mia here, and her EX isn't too high priority. You actually don't even need her EX, like unless you're doing really high Coliseum, then it's nice to have, but even then, it's really not worth mileaging as it only makes her heals a bit more potent. It doesn't completely change your gameplay or make her super busted or change, how the character functions or even works. Mariel, you need her EX. You absolutely need her EX. It's like such a large part of her kit. It gives her such a big mobility boost. It gives her so much more utility. She's super good with her EX. Man, you absolutely need it. Mileaging it is always going to be a good decision. I'm thinking, yeah, no, I think she belongs in S tier in terms of priority. And do look at the S tier in a leading order, right? So if you have Claude, his EX is the first one you should get. However, this is ignoring, already built team comps and stuff. This is just general broad stuff. So do take, everything with a bit of a grain of salt. White Kid, again, absolute trash unit, not worth really doing anything for. Building the character is pointless. Maybe get him to level 60 for like the 80 gems, right? At least that's the best value you'll get out of him. His EX, don't pick it up. Like, don't ever summon for it. If you get it, level it up to 60, get the collection boost, and then extract it as soon as you can. Let's see. Who are we gonna have next? Garam. Garam, I think, does need his EX. However, as he is locked into complete mono water, it's not as good of investment as a lot of other generalists. So he's not bad. He's definitely near the bottom of A. Actually, top of no no, but no top of B plus. Locking you into mono water is just straight up nasty. Considering that, let's see, if you were to get lucky, Andros is like your best mono water buddy up here, and you'd be missing out on so many other solid units to work with. Yeah, no, B plus, B plus at best. Chrome. You can just grab one of Chrome's EXs. Her banner is out right now. It's not bad to have. She scales really well into the late game. Great expedition hero. So certainly, if you were to get one, yeah, I'm gonna put her in B plus because she provides less value for a beginner than she does for like a mid game player. However, it's not bad value to get her EX. Not as good value or as game changing as some of the ones in S or A plus tier though. So do definitely keep that in mind. Next up is Rue, and she's in the same situation as Garam, where she is a good unit, but she does lock you into Mono Earth. Her EXs are actually she's actually better than Garam in my opinion, because Earth is much stronger than Water. It has Earth is just purely better than Water. I mean, it scales better, it does everything better, it does more damage, it's a better arena team comp, it's better in Coliseum. So yeah, Rue is better than Garam. However, do realize that she does lock you into Mono Earth in her team. So if you were planning on, switching some stuff around, it's going to be a bit more difficult. Rosetta, not a bad investment, not a bad investment. The character definitely changes a decent bit with the EX. She's also a DPS, so yeah, if you're going to run her on your team, you're pretty much going to need her EX. However, I don't think she's higher prior than some of these. Future Princess can actually go down a tier, as she really doesn't need her EX at all to function, unless you are using her as your lead or using her in arena. We're also going to be ranking some of the, commonly used or popular rare heroes like Aoba. Her EX is actually pretty good. It makes her a much more budget healer. However, it's really only an early game thing, so if you get it, it's cool. If you don't, it's whatever. But if you do get it, it's nice. It's nice. It's definitely a good quality of life as your healing is a good bit stronger. However, once you transition out of, clearing the story or get a better healer, it was really going to fall off. Especially considering that most of her strength lies in her Earth team. She's going to have a much greater value on a team with, like, Kamael and Mayriel than with something like, I don't know, Beth and Future Princess, right? Because she just gives them less benefits, especially considering her party buff and stuff. Next up, we're actually gonna go with Sumer. Sumer is also just absolute trash unit. Decent, like barely usable in PvP. Haven't seen her much. Like you see YouTube videos and stuff on her every other week or so, but she doesn't really dominate the meta exactly. She's also useless in PvE. So even getting her is sad, especially if you're gonna go for EX. Just don't. MK99, once again, she's actually a solid DPS. So getting your EX is actually not a bad option, especially if you're going to use her as your main DPS, because it makes her DPS more potent. That's like it's simple. It doesn't matter what other extra effects it provides, just because it purely improves your DPS so much. Having it's worth it for most of your top DPSs. The stronger the DPS, the more you need the DPS's EX. May and Faye, if you get them, it's cool. I mean, they're not really that special. They're really not. They're used for like I believe some niche niche PvP stuff, but other than that, useless in PvE. They don't provide much. Marina, if you're using her in arena, it's not bad, but she is, I'd say not that meta in arena. She's like pseudo off meta. I haven't had much experience with PvP recently, so I can't talk much about it. However, if you're using her as, a story tank because you don't have any other tank, you should have Craig. You should be using Craig. But if you just like Marina, then it's fine to use her without her sword because once again, it's just a tank. You don't have to really worry about their DPS or their weapon effects because it doesn't influence them. For most of them, it's their weapon or accessory. For Marina, it's going to be her accessory that really holds up her tankiness. But if we're talking about a better tank, just go Craig, please. Unless you have like some emotional attachment to Marina, she's really not worth it. So it's not worth going for her. Noxia EX, you're actually gonna really want it. It's a solid EX that makes your kit a lot more functional, and it definitely helps her out quite a bit. All right, I think I'm actually gonna put it in top of B plus tier because while it is good, it's really not as changing for the other characters. Her body for a new player, she holds next to no value, so getting her EX isn't really that beneficial. You really don't want to be mileaging anything below A plus and maybe A tier. Some of the A tiers are actually fine to mileage, but anything below that, it's really questionable. Orca, if she's your main DPS, she's not bad to pick up, but once again, she really ties into water really well. Outside of that, she's not as strong. So if you're running a team with like, Garam and her, it's perfectly fine to mileage either one of their weapons. But outside of that, once again, it's not. Lapis, useless trash for a new player. I mean, provides nothing even in endgame. She had like a light melee team or something. I don't remember. But even then, no. It's just not a valuable unit to go for. Same thing with Summer. Amy doesn't provide anything for a new player, so you don't even want to bother mileaging her EX. Amaris isn't actually bad if you're running like a mono team, Mono Earth or something along the lines of that. It's a really good unit. However, most of her potential is in raids. So outside of that, she's a lot weaker than something like Mariel. Mariel is just infinitely better than Amaris. Okay, like in every single field, Mariel is just infinitely better than Amaris. So just definitely acknowledge that. So if you have Mariel, use her over Amaris. I did miss a couple of characters, so I'm just going to be quickly ranking out a lot of the trash heroes. So Vishuvak, once again, completely useless for a new player. Doesn't really hold much value as a unit itself, so definitely don't bother with her EX. I was about to call his. Eleanor EX is nice to have, especially if you're running Mono Light, but once again, it's a Mono type locked unit. So it's not going to be ranking too high because it's not that versatile, and you'd be much better off mileaging MK99 or Gabriel's EXs. Lucy, once again, is just a really bad unit that's just completely fallen off. Doesn't do much nowadays. Maybe has a couple niche uses in PvP, but I don't even think she's existent in PvP. Bari, once again, is just outdated, right? If we were, like a year and a half or even 2 years back, she would have actually been really. I don't remember exactly when Bari released, but it was a while ago, right? If we were back then, she would have been, the peak of S tier, but nowadays she's just too outdated. Her animations are too long, and for that, other characters just do everything she does better, especially considering she's just a glass cannon. Just not worth mileaging her weapon and not even going for her in the first place. Scintilla, not much value for a new player, so I'm just going to be C tier. Her unit itself doesn't provide anything for a new player, so going for a weapon is just pointless. Same thing. Eugene MK2, same thing, not really worth it. AA72 isn't too bad. However, nothing all too special or game changing about her kit. She's honestly just a mid tier unit. Doesn't do all too much, but is good enough to be good. Next up, we're gonna go for Paimon. Paimon is also just a really bad tank. I guess if you don't have another tank, she's better than like, Vishuvak or something. She's fine. Vishuvak isn't a tank, though. I'm just talking unit wise. Getting her EX is fine, but once again, don't mileage anything that's, in B tier below. Never mileage anything that's B tier below. B plus, it's very questionable. S tier mileaging any of these is good depending on where you are. Okay, I'm just gonna clarify this here. Beth EX is only worth mileaging if you're at the beginning of story. If you're at like mid game and you already have good range characters built and you just need to mileage a couple other characters, go for range. It's not worth going for Beth at that point because you get most of her values at 2 points of the game. Early game for absolutely smashing through most content, and endgame where she's a great arena and Coliseum hero. You can also run her for melee dark raids, but that's really, really sus, right? I hate to use the word sus here, but that's really all it is. Claude and the range dark is so much better. The characters on that team are so much more versatile and usable in other contexts too. So I mean, why go Beth at that point, right? Next up, we're gonna look at, I believe, let's do Nari if I can find her. Yep, Nari. It's also a really low priority EX. Her EX doesn't do anything. It doesn't make her DPS that much higher. So it's pretty much just a Tinia EX. If you get it, it's cool, but it's nothing really special. But she does provide a lot more value as a unit than Tinia, in my opinion. So she's gonna be up here. I know they both have defense shreds, but Nari is just a better unit in my opinion. Anyways, next up, Chunryo. Pretty much a prime rage unit. Not bad though. So if you are running, light teams and stuff, it's okay having it, but I wouldn't really mileage the EX either. Like a lot of these EXs are so questionable to mileage. Mileage is just such a valuable thing, right? If you were to put it in gem value, it's like 81,000. However, of course, you're going to be getting a lot of mileage for free from events, like a lot of free pulls. So it's not always going to be 81,000 gems. Most of the time, it's going to be like around 30, 40,000 gems to hit mileage every time you have the gems for it. But yeah, just do realize that mileage is valuable. Eugene is absolutely useless unit, pure trash. I've seen her in like PvP a couple times, but other than that, useless unit. I don't even think she's that good in PvP. So yeah, it's not worth it. So pure, if you're going for light melee, I don't think she's all too bad, right? Especially if you're going for it with like Heroes Kai and stuff. It's not bad as a beginner start, but melee, in my opinion, is worse than ranged. Like the only few times you're going melee is actually worth it. It's just bad, right? Let's look at the tier list. Ranged, 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 ranged. Right? Range, 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 range. Pretty much range, range. Gun with range, range. Right? Range, range, range. Most of everything is just range. Melees get little to no love, so you're gonna be forced into a smaller pool of characters to pick from if you go melee. Mad Panda Trio, it's not bad, but once again, it's really nothing to mileage. The weapon does actually give you a fair bit of stuff and value to the character, but it's not really worth going for as a new player. The reason why I'm covering a lot of these not in detail is because they just aren't worth it, right? Mileaging any of these isn't a good idea, so it's not worth. Hana, same thing, doesn't really provide a lot of value to a new player. Mileaging her EX isn't really going to get you anywhere, and most of C tier isn't really in any order except like Nari maybe. Same thing goes for D tier except Aleph. Aleph belongs there. C plus tier, same thing. Most of these are just in order. The real orders are for like S, A plus, A, and B plus, and there isn't much of a gap between Kamael and Claude. Yunha should probably be up here too. It's just she gets less of a significant boost from having an EX than Claude. B plus tier can definitely be tweaked around a bit though. I'm also going to be excluding exclusive heroes here because as a new player you can't really get them. We're gonna put the summer girls in C plus tier because once again they don't provide all too much value. I'm actually gonna move them up to B tier because a lot of players seem to have. No, they belong in C plus tier. They're not good. They're not that good. We're gonna put Lorraine in bottom of B tier because it's Lorraine, and even then, don't mileage her. Now she belongs there. Anyone else? His banner's out right now. So if we're talking about right now, mileaging his weapon is an absolute horrible D tier idea. But as a unit, he's not that bad. He's not that bad. However, once again, you are restricted into a melee team. But I'm gonna put him at the bottom of B tier because he does have a few decent team. I'm also gonna move Light Shapiro up. Yeah, around there, honestly. Next up, Idol Eva. She's fallen out of favor for I think basic raids, so the unit itself isn't really that insane anymore, and her EX therefore isn't worth it. Right? For a unit to be good, their EX must be worth it if only they themselves are good. Arena's not bad. Arena, same thing. I call her Arena. Top of B tier for a new player, her EX isn't much priority because she's a PvP unit, pure PvP unit. Aisha's actually going to be pretty decent up here. She has not bad value for her EX. She provides like crit buffs and stuff, so it's not bad. But once again, don't mileage it. Don't don't mileage your EXs. I can't drill that into people's heads enough. Don't. Just it's not. Lifeguard Yusei is actually not bad. I'm actually gonna put her a lot higher. right? Getting her EX is much more worth it than getting, like, for example, Sword Agma. This is Gun Agma, by the way, not Sword, Gun Agma. And the reason I'm putting it in B plus here is because I think a lot of people are gonna think it's Sword Agma because he's primarily used as a tank and a mileage Sword Agma. So don't. Whoever skips ahead and does it, it's not my fault, mate. Her banner's out right now, so if we're talking about mileage now, it's gonna be a D tier choice. But as a unit, she's generally not that bad. Useful and she's quite useful in melee raids. She has great value to melee teams like Ray Beth is a really nice combo. Yeah, she's gonna be about around there. However, I wouldn't really mileage her weapon. I wouldn't. She's a good character, but I wouldn't. Next up, let's go with Lilith. Lilith, her EX makes her a lot better, especially considering she is a DPS. However, she herself isn't that broken because she's connected to melee teams, and once again, like I've said, melee teams are weaker. However, she's a good unit, and I think if you're running her with someone like Beth, getting her EX is definitely a good idea if you have Beth's EX. Bianca, absolute trash unit. Her EX holds completely no value. Sea Witch era, not a bad idea. However, once again, don't mileage her EX. She's a good character. Her EX gives her nice value, but once again, not worth it. Elvira, she's probably the worst of all the Ascended heroes. Like, Ascended Karina is super good, great DPS, great healing for the dark teams. And Craig, just the most generic, raw tank that's super good at his job. Elvira is just good DPS, and it's not that insane considering she's primarily for fire raids. And the dark and basic raid teams are absolute monsters, and earth raid team is just so good, right? So if you're looking for a raid team other than those three, water is probably the best option. So fire never really comes up. However, she's not bad, but it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. Especially considering mileaging rare weapons isn't worth it. I'm gonna say this throughout the video, okay? If it gets repetitive, you can click off the video, but I swear someone will be tempted to mileage a rare hero weapon. And if I can prevent that for even one person, it's worth it. Lupina has also started falling off, right? So nothing really too significant for the character. Priscilla, honestly, not bad, but she's nothing crazy. She doesn't provide a lot of value in PvE. Not too strong. Don't mileage her EX. A lot of B and C plus tier is arguably interchangeable. However, it's really it's really general. Valencia, in my opinion, holds no value for a beginner. Really trash unit. Anyone else? Let's hope I don't miss Veronica. Yep, Veronica's also not that insane. Right? Someone left a comment talking about something about Veronica. I don't remember all too much, but she just like she's not all too crazy, right? Let's actually talk about what she does, okay? Like, okay, hands down, Veronica is honestly a pretty decent unit. Hit multiplier buffs and everything. Her weapon gives her a decent bit of feel, so she's actually not bad. She's not bad, but once again, mileaging her weapon is really sketchy. Clara, she's a DPS, so just alone that warrants her to be in like B tier. However, once again, not worth it. Not worth it. There's so many better characters, man. If you're new and you literally cannot use any character, you're for some reason not having, any unique heroes, you can literally run Karina, Craig, Amy, and like Aoba. No, Karina, Craig, A. But yeah, let's see who else do we have left. Chun-Li, pretty useless character, doesn't really provide a lot of value once again for a new player. Not good. Kana, she's a good character, good use for basic raids and stuff, but she just doesn't need her EX, right? So you don't need to worry about it, especially if you're new. Carol, not really worth it. The unit doesn't provide much value for a new player, so just going for the EX. Someone was saying I overrated Arabelle on my last tier list, and that's probably true to an extent. However, I think she's better than a lot of the stuff down here. Definitely better than Paimon, Parvati, Marina, Lupin. Yeah, she should probably be around there. She herself, once again, not the best of characters, but her EX isn't all too bad for her. So she's not bad. However, once again, as I've said multiple times, don't mileage anything below B plus here. It's so not worth it. Am I missing anyone else here now? Oh, Lon. Lon's second EX isn't actually that bad. It's pretty good for basic raids and stuff. So not bad, not bad, not bad. Not a bad character. However, once again, I don't think she is of any priority for a new player, right? Anyone else? Let's see. I don't think anyone else is left this time, right? Because that's just basic Sohi. That's Rachel. Yeah. Yep. No, I don't think anyone's left. We've covered pretty much everyone here. Yeah. So yeah, let me know what you guys think, and if you enjoyed the content, if you found it helpful, just subscribe. It would really help the channel out and supports future content. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it helpful, and I'll see you all later.